Well, good afternoon, everyone. During this very short section, we'll be talking about how to cross SFA CTOs. We're going to glimpse little information on access options, wire selection, and support catheter choice. So it's important to realize that approximately 10 to 20% of coronary lesions that we treat are CTOs. However, more than 50% of the lesions that we treat in the periphery, they're chronic occlusions. So how do we cross them? Well, let's start with the basics. Let's talk about access. Access comes in two varieties, if you may, antegrade and retrograde. Antegrade can be ipsilateral or contralateral. We use antegrade access preferably when you have a proximal cap that is not ambiguous. We prefer using 0.35-inch hydrophilic guide wires with catheter support to attempt to cross the chronic total occlusion. Retrograde comes in two varieties as well, popliteal or pedal. Nowadays, more often than before, we're using pedal access. And we use retrograde access when the proximal cap is ambiguous. We prefer starting with 0.18-inch or 0.14 guide wires with catheter support, but sometimes we need to use combined antegrade and retrograde access. We do this when both the proximal and distal caps are ambiguous. What about support catheters? Well, this is quite simple. There's two varieties. There's straight and there's shaped support catheters. The difference is that straight catheters will have more pushability than steerability, and shaped catheters will have more steerability than pushability. What about the wires? The wires come predominantly in three diameters, 0.35-inch, 0.18-inch, or 0.14-inch. When you increase the diameter, you increase support, torqueability, vessel straightening, and it's directly related to the radius. So when you go from 0.14 to 0.18, you essentially increase the columnar shaft support by 3 folds. Now when you decrease the diameter, we increase the flexibility and trackability of the equipment. What about the materials? Well, the core material will affect the flexibility, the support, the steerability, and the trackability of the wire. Now, the core comes in three main varieties, so stainless steel or nitrile or a hybrid of them. Now, when the core tapers or when you grind the core, you essentially increase the flexibility of the wire, as you see in this graph. What about tip design? Well, the tip design will affect the steerability and the durability of the wire. The core to tip will allow the steerability and the tactile feedback that we have when we're doing the interventions and the durability of the wire. And the shaping ribbon is important because it will allow us to shape the tip of the wire. It increases flexibility and allows us to prolapse or knuckle the wire if you want to do subintimal dissections. What about the penetration wire force? This is when we refer to penetration power, which is more indicative of penetration than tip stiffness. And it's nothing more than tip stiffness divided by pi times guide wire tip area. Now this is a nice table where you see the different tip load in wires and what is their penetration power as we had defined before. What about coils and covers? Well, coils will affect support, steerability, trackability. It impacts the visibility and the tactile feedback, while the covers, which may be polymer, plastic, or hydrophilic or hydrophobic cover, will decrease the coefficient of friction and improve the trackability. What about the coating? Well, there's two types, as you well know. There's hydrophobic and hydrophilic coating. Hydrophobic is that Teflon wax-like covering that reduces friction. And the hydrophilic covering will increase the water-water interaction and as well decrease friction or reduce friction. Now, there is a trade-off. When you have hydrophilic wires, they will have greater lubricity but less tactile feedback, while hydrophobic wires will have more tactile feedback than lubricity. Now, there's many ways to treat CTOs. Perhaps the easiest ones are the following. If the wire tip prolapses at the cap and you want to do a subintimal dissection, keep pushing. Otherwise, use a wire with a higher tip gram load or advance the support catheter near the tip. If the proximal segment of the tip buckles, use a wire with a higher tip gram load, switch for a hydrophilic coated wire, or advance the support catheter near the cap. If the wire crosses but the device fails to cross, then change to a wire with a higher rail support, advance the sheath closer to the occlusion, creating a wiggle wire sort of effect, or exchange for a lower profile system. And finally, if the wire enters the subintimal space and fails to re-enter the true lumen, you may reshape the guide wire tip to facilitate re-entry, or you may change support of the wire tip by exchanging to a different catheter tip shape, or utilize a re-entry device, and there's many of them, as you will know. Finally, there's devices that if the bread and butter traditional way of crossing CTO don't work, you may start using some of these crosser devices. And if you go subintimal, you want to get back to your true lumen, there's multiple re-entry devices as you see here. So in conclusion, over 50% of peripheral lesions contain a chronic total occlusion. Understanding the wire attributes and crossing strategies are essential to be successful. And recent data has indicated that CTO crossing devices may be a viable primary option if you're not able to cross with your bread and butter traditional wires. Thank you very much.